Welcome back to the Daily Show, and very honored here to have our Commissioner of Education, Wayne Lewis.
Thank you.
And he just spoke to the crowd here at the third National Micro-Credentials Summit held here in Louisville, the first two in Hazard, and then now it's in Louisville, and then next year it's going to be in Iowa. But isn't it exciting that you've got local educators that are on the forefront or on the cutting edge of micro-credentials and hosting a national summit?
It's really exciting, and it's um, folks I think across the country realize that there are educators in Kentucky and leaders in Kentucky that are on the cutting edge of a lot of innovations in education. This is one of those examples. The opportunity for KVEC to be front and center and lead in this space is really exciting for me as commissioner. I'm proud of the work that they're doing and not just pushing Kentucky, but in pushing our nation.
So, Commissioner, what is the value of micro-credentials and competency-based professional learning for our K-12 educators, as well as post-secondary?
Yeah, so when I think about the power of micro-credentialing, I think about it first in terms of the power for our students, and thinking about us being really specific about the skills, the competencies, the learning that we want for them. Micro-credentialing, I think, gives us a way to think about their learning and their skill set in a much more specific fashion than we have in the past. And then for our educators, I think it gives us a way to think about our own skills, our own competencies, how we can continue to grow as educators and acquire the tools and skills that we need to be able to move learning in the classroom. I think it's just tremendous possibilities. And really, I think both education and the economy are demanding it, right? No longer is the day where either schools as employers or other employers in business and industry are interested in just having a certificate or a degree for certificate or degree's sake. What people are interested in is what you're able to do. Micro-credentialing allows us to speak much more specifically and intentionally about what the learner or the worker is able to do.
And just as it's very important to have personalized learning for students, it's very important to have that personalized learning for our professionals, educators.
That's right. As educators, we come to our jobs with different strengths, with different areas of growth, and having the opportunity to target our learning in those areas where we need learning and support the most, I think is really powerful. And then as well, we teach and work in contexts that are different. So my challenges in Owen County may be different than my challenges in Jefferson County, which may be different than my challenges in Fayette County. Micro-credentialing then again gives us the opportunity to target our learning not just where our specific areas of growth are, but at those areas where we need growth to best serve the needs of the kids who we're serving.
And Commissioner, and I'll tell the audience this, that'll be watching this on the Holler and other locations, that last night, June 17th, you were on the KET with Renee Shaw on Kentucky Tonight, and be sure to go ahead and Google that, find that KET broadcast, because it gave the history of K-12 public education since the famous court case, the Rose case, the formation of CARA, and some other things. And it was just a great history, and it pulled it all in perspective. And in that program, you talked about what you were just talking about, the very importance of each district is different, and they have different special challenges and opportunities and needs, and therefore you want to allow local districts to have more control in terms of deciding what directions they need to go.
Absolutely. I think it's important from the state level for us to be really clear about direction and expectations, and we do that even in collaboration and in partnership with our local districts. But when you get into matters of how districts and how schools are going to go about the work of teaching and learning, or go about the work of staffing, or what types of programs or interventions you're going to use, those decisions are much better made on the ground. at the school level by practitioners who know their communities, know their parents and kids a whole lot better than I could ever know from Frankfurt. And so I see our role at Frankfurt as being really clear and helping to set direction for the state, but recognizing that the needs of local communities across our Commonwealth are different. And the way we get to that goal, that really clear goal we have for kids, is going to look different depending on the district and the region we're talking about.
And you made another very important point in last night's program, and that is that there's more transparency now about what goes on in our schools than ever before. The type of reporting, so students as parents can look at their district and see some things, how dollars are spent, other type of activities, how people are performing, more so than we've ever had in the past.
That's
so
right.
Hopefully more people can get engaged in their schools and be
That's
part of
right.
that conversation.
That's right, and I see that greater transparency. Transparency is a good thing, right? We're public schools. We're funded by taxpayer dollars, and taxpayers have a right to know how their dollars are spent, and they have a right to expect return on their investment in tax dollars, right? Kentucky taxpayers are investing the money they are because they expect us to serve their kids and serve their communities well. That's a reasonable expectation. What we hope is this greater transparency invites parents and community members into conversation with us as educators. One of the newest features of our transparency is spending per pupil at the school level. So we've for a while been showcasing that at the district level. Now we're all the way down to the school level and looking at spending. But you can't really get a complete picture of what that looks like without taking those numbers and having a conversation with your superintendent, with your local school district, with your school board members, and understand why funds sometimes are categorized in one way versus another, why sometimes there's a significant increase in spending at one school but not another school. There could be projects happening at one time that are going to disappear, from the ledger in another year or two. Building projects, special initiatives, and so my hope with the greater transparency is that people don't just take that and make assumptions about what's happening, but use it as an invitation to engage in dialogue with us.
Parts of our Commonwealth are doing very well economically. Then we have parts with the KVAC service area, for instance, those 23 school districts, 17, 18, 19 counties, that because of what's happened in the coal industry, that downturn, and some other challenges where they've lost enrollments, therefore lost some funding and all that. What are some things that need to be done to help rural school districts that are having some of those economic challenges?
We can't have that conversation, that education conversation, in a vacuum. Right? Clearly, we have to have that conversation about education in concert with the conversation about economic development. Because there's no way that we can improve the quality of life for our citizens in the KVAC region without being able to attract industry and jobs to that region, to give folks a handout, but to provide folks with the opportunities that they want to be able to provide for their kids and provide for their families. And so we're going to have to continue to support our school districts in preparing kids so that they're ready to take advantage of the jobs and the opportunities of this 21st century economy. But we're also going to have a much closer relationship with our economic development cabinet, with our education and workforce development cabinet, and realizing that we're going to have to get parents back to work. There's no substitute for that. Even the quality of education that we can provide for kids is dependent on us being able to make families whole again.
Well, I know you're a big champion of equity.
Yes, sir.
And so a challenge we have in rural school districts are the fact that people in rural school districts don't make as much money across the board, but teacher pay because of the local tax base and all that. So a rural school teacher quite often doesn't make near as much as an urban area. But on the other hand, they may have a student loan debt, so it's harder to repay that debt so they could get in that profession of teaching. Do you have any thoughts on what needs to be done in this area?
So nothing that I put forward as a solution yet, but I want you and I want your viewers to know that that's a conversation that we're engaging in. In fact, that's a conversation I've been engaged in with some of the superintendents here, KVEC superintendents, even today, in recognizing that those challenges for districts are real. Because, yes, you have teachers in lots of our KVEC region districts whose pay isn't commensurate anywhere near what it could be in our more affluent urban and suburban districts. But those districts find themselves having to compete to keep those teachers or attract those teachers. And so we're going to have to be, we're going to have to think out of the box a little bit and think about what some potential solutions could be, because kids in rural, you know, resource strapped areas deserve high quality teachers, high quality instruction, resources, just like kids in any other part of our Commonwealth. And we're going to have to find a way to make sure that those kids are served just like kids anywhere else.
What is the state of K-12 education in the Commonwealth at this point? And then, I don't know how many more years you'll be commissioner, but what do you hope to achieve to move where we're at now to where you wish us to go?
Yeah. So when I signed my contract to come to Kentucky at the University of Kentucky in 2008, I went immediately to learn about the history of education reform in the state. And I started actually with the Rose versus Council for Better Education decision, and came to understand and appreciate the incredible sacrifice that Kentuckians made to fight for more equitable opportunities for kids across this state. There is no doubt that the result of that Rose decision, the finding of the Kentucky Supreme Court, and then the direction of the General Assembly to recreate our public school system through CARA has had profound impact on the quality of education we provide for kids across this Commonwealth. This is not the public education system of Kentucky 20 to 30 years ago. We are in a significantly different place, and we should be incredibly proud. With that said, I think it is time for us to take that next step. We have to do a better job of ensuring that regardless of where kids are across our Commonwealth, regardless of their economic background, that they have have access to high quality opportunity and to resources. That's an area where I don't think we've made nearly as much progress as we can or as we should, frankly, as we must. That's the next frontier for us. And then we want to continue to move achievement as well, not just for our districts that are struggling resource-wise, but even for our districts that are doing well, our suburban districts, our urban districts where you don't have as significant a resource challenges. There's potential there to continue to grow. We will not be satisfied, and when I say we, I mean Kentuckians, will not be satisfied with saying we're no longer at the very bottom. And so as long as we can stay here, stay in that middle 50%, we're okay. We are so much better than that. Our kids deserve so much better than that. And we have the potential to be an elite public education system, one where we prepare kids well for post-secondary education and for the workforce. So that has to become our metric. When kids exit public education, when they exit our schools in Kentucky, that they're well prepared to do something next, whether that's going into a 2-year program, a 4-year program, into the workforce, in an apprenticeship program. We just can't graduate kids and knowing that they're not well prepared. That's my North Star. I believe that's where our system wants to go, and I'm excited about the possibilities because we can do it.
We know there's some really special challenges in the state of Kentucky. There's a lot of different reasons, but why we have a higher percentage of grandparents raising our students.
I believe the highest.
Yes, and then and other guardians, because older siblings or aunts and uncles. So what would you tell those folks that did not anticipate that they were going to be raising young people and then helping them get through school? What advice and counsel do you give to those people?
Well, the first thing I say to those folks is thank you. Um, Thank you so much for your willingness to step up and to take care and of grandkids, of nieces, of nephews, sometimes but of kids who aren't even blood relatives. I mean, it's an incredible sacrifice and labor of love. I've been in Kentucky long enough to know that that's just who we are as people. The challenges that you note with raising kids lots of times when Kentuckians are later in their lives can be significant. I think we have to continue to grow as a public education system to embrace families um, that have compositions that look different. Right, being a state where you have more grandparents raising kids than any other place in the country, we're going to have to, I think, be much more sensitive and understanding of the fact that these are not traditional parents, but that we need them. We absolutely need them in their kids' lives. We need them in our schools. It's probably going to take a little more on our part in terms of reaching out to them. I think that's happening in a lot of our school districts already. I think we just have to be much more intentional in thinking about it. But more than anything, just to thank the incredible people that take that on, and they do it as a labor of love. They do it because they love kids, they love their community, and they love our state.
What would you tell a young person who's thinking about teaching, going into the profession, or maybe it's an older professional who's had a career but enjoys working with young people, helping shape their minds and future? What would you advise those people that are thinking about that?
Please do it. There is not a more noble profession out there. The challenges of being a teacher, I think, are well documented. I don't think there are many folks out there who don't understand that this is an incredibly challenging profession. I mean, literally, you have the fate, the futures of kids, post-secondary opportunities and workforce possibilities in your hands every day. The opportunity to shape and mold careers and lives is an incredible responsibility. What I don't think we talk nearly enough about is how incredibly rewarding teaching as a profession can be. Um, I, I continue to love to run into folks who I've had in classrooms, whether it's the middle school or high school level or at the post-secondary level, and learn about what they're doing in their lives and hear them recount stories of something I said in a classroom one day. To tell you the truth, I get nervous every time somebody says, "Remember when you said," because I say, "Oh my God, what, what did I say?" And that you remember. Um, I have the privilege of being married to an educator as well. And so we get to talk quite a bit about our experiences and talk about our students and former students. And we talk about them so much that they kind of run together. Some of her former students, I feel like maybe I taught because she talked about them so much. But I would impress upon anybody thinking about going into this profession that I can't think of anything that's more rewarding or life-changing um, than being an educator.
Well, we know that you need to work with the governor. You need to work with the legislature. But if you could just make one thing happen to advance the North Star vision that you have this state, what would you do?
Wow. If I could wave a magic wand, I'd want to create the type of situation where, regardless of where a kid grows up, regardless of their parents' economic background, that they have access to the same types of opportunities. One of the things that's most heartbreaking for me, but also drives me in my work, is wanting to do everything we can to eliminate barriers that exist just based on kids' background and where they live. If that's what I could eliminate with that magic wand, that's what I would do.
Okay, with that, we'll end it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.